And I want to say one other thing, because I was angry about this for a long time. When I worked at the studios, there were 7 major studios, and they all wanted the same type of film. There couldn't be a female lead. You couldn't have a positive black role model.
Yeah.
The antagonist, by and large, was a young black male. That you would go into these meetings, they go, well, Russia's the villain in this, and they would demonize and villainize. And Hollywood, when I was there, was a racist, sexist, misogynistic place that controlled a lot of the culture. And it was very unfair. And even though I'm a white male, and I guess benefited from that, I wanted other voices. When I want to watch a movie, I don't want to see another Spider-Man movie. It just isn't my thing. I saw the first one, fine. But, I want to see independent cinema. I want to see different voices. I want to see something original. And one of the things that my distributor said to me the other day is originality is really what's going to reign. And my lawyer said the same thing. I have this really great, successful lawyer in LA. And he said originality always wins out. And he represents a lot of documentary filmmakers. I think they've won the Academy Award like 3 of the last 5 years with clients. And he said, the key is originality. And I'm now living in a world where I want to tell a story hasn't been told. Yeah. I don't want to do stereotypes. When I went out and set out to do this movie, I had no idea what people were going to say. We had 7 investors cancel on one day. They were afraid to go before the camera. They didn't want to talk about money. Money's a weird subject people don't like to talk about. But we struggled through it. We shot 100 hours of footage. We interviewed 60 people. The first cut was like 3 hours. So I sat in the editing room and I cut and I cut and I cut. And it runs now an hour 41. And we had offers from everybody. When we took the picture to market, and some of the biggest names, household names. And I had films, for example, on Netflix, and they had misspelled my name. On some films, they didn't put the director. I had no control over the synopsis of my movie or the copy that was selling my movie. And it wasn't even my movie. It was just some generic nonsense. And it was a very frustrating process. And Netflix is distributed in the old system, DVD and on streaming, 4 of my films. And I just got to a point where I don't want to do Netflix. I'm not interested in this anymore. What's the point of 2 years raising the money, making the film for 6 months, doing all the work we did, and then they just throw it up against the wall. They don't promote it. They don't publicize it. You don't control the artwork. You don't control the copy. As the filmmaker, they're like keeping me from my audience. Well, that's what I like about YouTube and other platforms. And we went with a small distributor named KDMG, Kazmarek Digital Media Group. And they're the greatest people I've ever worked with in my life. 2 of them worked at Warner Brothers, but they're 6 years old, but they really get digital. They really get streaming. They really get foreign. And they kind of get the DVDs are over. They kind of get the theatrical experience for the moment isn't there. Yeah. And so they focus on these other things. So we went to market and we got 14 great streaming, opportunities on video on demand. And it's been a great experience. They said, can we see your poster art? Then they said, can you do a horizontal? They said, this is great. We're going to use it. Then they said, can you write up sort of the basic press release on your movie? And I did. And so we worked together. And I really recommend to your audience, forget the big guys. Yeah. They're just going to steamroll right over you. You need to find a small distributor like KDMG that loves great movies, and they don't particularly do exploitation or horror. They're interested in more quality, type stuff. And they love the originality of the film, and they embraced it. And to me, as a filmmaker, at this point in my career, to go out and raise the money and work myself for at least a year making the film and then hand it to somebody that just doesn't get it and I have no say. That was the frustration with the movie studios. Mm-hmm. You work on a script, you do this great project and you turn it in and then it would go in turnaround. And now it's at this studio. And now it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie or it's somebody else is writing it. And you've sold your baby. You know, you have no say in any of it. And when you complain about it, it's called sour grapes.
Right.
Even though you created it. They're your characters, it's your story. So I made a lot of money, but money's not enough. Okay. You know, remember the Russian writer Dostoevsky? Huh? He said, you have to have a relationship with God. You have to be in love and you have to do something creative to be happy. And I've never forgot, I read that when I was a teenager and I think about that occasionally. And the happiest times of my life, and money is not part of the equation. I have a relationship with God and I think I'm living the right way. I'm in love with somebody and I'm doing creative work. Mm. The money, and I've made lots of money and I've made no money. I like to be comfortable. And by most people's standards, you know, I make more than most people. But by Hollywood standards, I'm not in their league. But money is not the most important thing. Knowing how to raise money or invest the money is important. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of got to, you got to go through this process and figure out who you are and what you want to say. And I feel today, Jason, like when I was 17 years old, I had a passion for making movies. And I went to a movie theater and I saw the concert for Bangladesh with George Harrison and Bob Dylan. And they were raising money with a record and a concert and a movie to feed starving children in Bangladesh. And to me, that was the greatest thing in the world. And so I went to my church, I went to my pastor, and he said, oh, you shouldn't be worrying about things like that. You should be out chasing girls and throwing a football. And that was sort of the beginning of my estrangement with organized religion. And then I went out to Hollywood. And I said, there are starving children in the world. There are these needless wars. We should make films about, no. We don't want to do that. No. And they laughed at me. I went to a very prestigious prep school in Michigan. And I made a short film about the starving children of Bangladesh. And I got an F in the film class. And they said to me, that's not a movie. So one of my films I'm working on now, I started self-financing. And what I'm doing is I'm doing $25 a day, either in microloans or donations. And the first money I gave was $100 to the George Harrison Fund through UNICEF because children are still starving to death in Bangladesh.